white sacrifice confusion. So what is that? What does that mean? Racial white sacrifice confusion. So this term applies when the racist white supremacists speak and or act to dominate and mistreat non-white people by doing great harm to themselves. Doesn't make sense, does it? Well, they do. They'll allow or do great harm to themselves, meaning other white people, or allow others, like non-white people, to do great harm to white people. Now that doesn't make sense, if you think logically, but there's a strategy behind it. So basically they do this in order to cause non-white people to, number one, believe that white supremacy does not exist, or in order to cause non-white people to believe that racism is not a serious problem, but it actually is. Neely Fuller Jr. calls them the sophisticated gangsters because they'll often kill, sacrifice, or battle each other in order to settle arguments on what's the best way to mistreat non-white people. So they'll fight over land, over territory, with each other. So maybe like Europe and Britain, like in the case of the Civil War, see that here, that was the North and the South of America fighting against each other, the Union and the Confederates fighting against each other so that they could control, or who was going to best control or dominate the non-white people. So what can you as an individual non-white person do about racial white sacrifice confusion? I want you to think about that. Now that concludes our presentation for today. So my questions are always going to be the same at the end of every class. The 3 questions that I want us to all be thinking about when solving the problem of racism, white supremacy is: how do the people who practice racism, white supremacy do what they do? What effect it has on Black people? And what Black people can do to work against the system of racism, white supremacy? So I am going to stop sharing my screen. And Eve, I'm going to hand it over to you.
And we're back. I told you guys that we might have a special teacher that joins us today, and it looks like he's here with us. Hey, Dr. Winters, how you doing?
Fine, and how are you today, Eve?
I'm doing all right. My camera, I can't get right with my camera and this app. So I've been having all sorts of difficulties, but we're about to start our wellness section of Sunday school. And then after that, I was really hoping that you would, join our conversation about Blacks in America, because the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, all of these things are, let's see. Oh, there I am. Hi guys. All of these things are super important to understand, because like Isla was just teaching them and always talks to them about, racism, white supremacy is designed to confuse. And from there, we don't want the minis to be confused. We want them to be prepared. So that is why we go through that. While I get everybody else situated over here, Dr. Winters, we start Sunday school with the news. Like, what's going on in your neck of the wood, north, east, west, or south? What's going on where you are? How's it hanging in your neck of the woods?
Well, the main thing is the Sonia Massey murder. So she's in Illinois. I'm in Chicago, but that's downstate. So that's kind of got a lot of people upset because a lot of people, they hate when I get on and I say that critical race theory means, number 1, white people hate you. Number 2, white people want to kill you. Number 3, white people created a system of racism or race in which they've made it so that you lose. And so a lot of people have been contacting me because they said, Dr. Winters, you always said they want to kill us. I said, yes. They want to kill you. And this poor lady, the guy, he doesn't even know why he did it. She said, I rebuke you in the name of God. You see, and he killed her. That's terrible.
It really is. And that people making excuses for, or trying to they always say that, well, he just doesn't have the right training. He didn't have the right training. I don't think that they need more training. I think that they need to be more honest about their harm to us, But I'm glad that people aren't. I'm glad that people are talking about it so that maybe she can get some justice.
Yeah, she might get some justice, but she's not the first one, and she won't be the last. A lot of times, in a sense, we don't feel that we should talk to our daughters and try to help our daughters understand that they're in danger too. It's not a simple thing. Our daughters, our sons, everybody's in danger because they hate you. They want to kill you. And what can you do?
That's true. That's very true. It's so true. All right, let's see. So on our wellness feed, we've got Dare to Be Real, and she's got a student in class today. So I'm going to kick it over to them to get you going with your wellness. That means that it's time to get up and out of our seats and get all of the sillies out. Let's do all of the stretching that we probably didn't do this morning, even though you told me last week that you would start doing it in the morning. So I'm gonna be quiet and let them do their thing.
Okay, everybody, we're going to start with some stretching.
Don't be goofy. People are watching you. Let's go. Do you remember the stretches? All right, so we're going to start with some basic stretches, right? We have to get our bodies moving and warm because when we do our challenge today, I don't want you guys to get stuck, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to reach up to the sky as far as we can, as high as we can, try to touch the ceiling. All right, we're going to do that for a count of 10. Let's see if Daria, Dare to Be Real, and her student can count to 10 for us in Spanish. Ready? Begin.
1, 2, 3.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Very good, very good. And I hope you guys are practicing your Spanish. We are starting very basic with numbers and food and colors, but in the same form and fashion that people come here who speak different languages and we give them a humanity pass for not speaking proper English, we are going to expect them to give us the same courtesies. All right, the next stretch we're going to do is we're going to reach down to the floor and try to touch our toes. If you can touch your toes, try to touch the floor. We're going to do it for a count of 10 in Espanol. Begin.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Very good, ladies. All right, so then we're going to do some arm stretches. We're going to put our right arm across our body and hold it up with our left arm to try to get a stretch in the top part of our bicep. That's the area of your arm above the elbow and under the shoulder. Okay, when you feel that stretch, we're going to go ahead and give it a count of 10 in Espanol. Let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Very good. Cross the other arm across that body. Hold it up with the opposite arm. Very good. You ready? Begin.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay. Do 10 jumping jacks, and then you're going to get ready for your wellness challenge. Yes, en Espanol. Let's go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right. So I hope you were able to get your sillies out, get your wiggles out. Do you want to join class? Go ahead. All right. Looks like we've got another participant, and this is going to be pretty dangerous because I don't think he did any stretches. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it goes. But in the future, in general, you guys, if you're going to do some exercises, please stretch before and stretch after, because it is the mobility that can injure you, as you get older, not being able to move as fast or as quickly because your body's stiff. So, all right. So our wellness challenge for today is brought to you by our original student. Step to the front. All right, and she wanted to do some yoga. So since she wanted to do the yoga, we decided that she would run through some basic yoga poses with you today. So you can mimic her movements as best as you can. And I'm going to tell you what they're called so that on your own, you can look them up with your parents and practice them at home. Okay, so the first pose, do you remember what the first pose? It's called mountain pose. And I wonder if you guys think what that looks like. What does mountain pose look like? What does a mountain look like? So if you're going to put your body like a mountain, how would that look like? Oh, that's a pretty good guess. But no, it's going to be just like our student teacher is doing. She's right in the front. She's standing straight and tall with her arms to the side of her body. And just stand there. Breathe deeply. Stop moving. Just breathe deeply. That's the stretch. Try to stand as straight as you can. Very good. Just like that. Can you guys do that for a count of 10? And I will count for you. All right. Are you stretching? You ready? All right. Very good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very good. Our next pose. I know it seemed very simple, right? When we're doing these yoga poses, it's not going to be about a complicated movement as much as maybe holding it for a long time is where it starts to get complicated. Isla, I hear you can't hear me, but Isla's having audio issues, so she'll be in and out of the chat while we do wellness. Are you joining class? Okay, join class. Let's go. It looks like we're almost about at a full house. Our next pose is called, I'll tell you what it's called. It's called downward dog. All right, so downward dog is a position where you're going to kind of look like a triangle. You're going to reach your hands. Look at our student teacher in the pink. That is exactly what you want to go for, just like Dare to Be Real. She's also giving it her all. If you're sliding like this one right here, then maybe you find some place on the floor where you're not going to slide all around. But once you get into your triangle mountaintop position, we're going to do that for a count of 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Very good. From there, just like Dare to Be Real is, you're going to go into a plank. A plank looks like the start of a push-up. So from downward dog, you're just going to lower your booty. You're going to lower your torso until you're parallel with the floor. So just like how Dare to Be Real looks on screen, that's what you're going for. You see Dame's way back there. He's also in plank position. The boy twin, I don't know what he's doing, but the girl twin, she's almost there. There we go. Student teacher, ready? Holding it for a count of 10. Begin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. From this position, you are going to move into child's pose. So you're going to reach back with your butts and down. You don't remember I showed it to you?
Oh, you doing neat. You like this, and then you go like that.
Yeah. Okay. Dare to Be Real's got it. Just like that.
Like this.
All right. So it's kind of like our Tyson push-ups from the other day. Remember we did the Tyson push-ups, and you have to do the push-up and then back into it just like that. So
Instead of doing the push-up, you just go like
Correct. Instead of doing a push-up, you're just going back into that stretch, and you're just going to stretch. Reach as far as you can on the ground with your hands, just like our student teacher's doing. Reach as far back as you can with your bottom close to the wall. And we're going to stretch for a count of 10. Uno, dos.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right. From there, get back in push-up position, and you've got 10 push-ups.
Ready? Begin.
Yeah, in Spanish.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right. Muchas gracias. Gracias to our students and to you guys for participating in our wellness and language part of class. I'm going to take a second to remove this one from the stage. All right. And Isla, are you back? Can you hear me? Isla, are you there? Still not there? Okie dokie, that's okay. Well, we do have a guest teacher here today, so this is where we're going to have a little conversation with you guys. And the reason, remember, we have math and our story for class. And inside of math and our story, you guys have a project. Remember, mind your state. That's what we're doing for the month of July. And inside of this project, you are supposed to be learning about where you come from, what state you come from. All of you guys enrolled are foundational Black American children, Black American, Native Black Americans, freedmen children, however you identify or how your parents identify our lineage. That's you guys. From there, we've been here for a long time. And that's why I wanted to include Dr. Winters, because sometimes when we're looking up the information, it's going to give us things that seem accurate. And then you get older, 20 years later, and you find that you have to unlearn and then relearn something all over again. Dr. Winters, are you there? You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, pretty cool. So in our Mind Your State project, we want to know who's been there, how long have they been there, if they can find the native people, the original people of the land, if there's any foods that can be grown in that area, and then when was it established. So we started with Virginia because that's where I am, and just as an example for the students to show them how they can present their information, whether it's, they're going to show me pictures of different foods, if they want to talk about the native peoples. And since I have a dual ancestry with the states, Virginia and Maryland being right next to each other, I moved on to Maryland as our next state. So established in 1788, but that's not really real, is it? Is Maryland only as old as 1788, Dr. Winters?
No, but the state, in a sense, it goes back much earlier than that, but it wasn't incorporated.
So it's very important, you guys, to pay attention to how things are listed, because the video that you should have watched during the week that I posted on Patreon that we'll check out at the end of this conversation, it has a lot of really good information in the video. It talks about Blacks specifically and our debt, and it gives a figure, and it talks about how we could pay for things. And it also gives inaccurate history. It starts to insert people who were not here at the time of the original harm. And remember, when we're talking about our reparative justice, it has to start somewhere. And when you don't include the biggest part, which is our enslaved ancestors' harm, then why are we even talking about reparations? So, you guys have to be prepared with this, because it's very simple. And when you make things very simple, that's when they start to get mean. So that's why we're trying to prepare you now. You won't be surprised when people start calling you names, even though you're just giving them the facts. And that's something that you've you have experience with Dr. Winters, right? People calling you all sorts of things because you're just presenting the facts.
Yes, it's very difficult, but kids, what you have to remember is that you have to believe in yourself and you have to stand on something. And that's one of the reasons why you want to know your history and you want to know who you are. Because see, it begins with you looking in the mirror and saying, "Damn, who am I?" That's not a bad word, but the point is this: is that you look in the mirror and you say, "Who am I? I'm so and so's son or daughter. So and so is my mom, and that's my grandma." And then you go further. But the thing is this: is that sometimes you have to ask questions, but asking questions is scary because I'm sad to say that sometimes parents and grandparents, they don't want to really answer the questions, but it's always good that it's always good to ask questions. That's how you learn.
And that's really, you guys, just like me and Isla, we've told you sometimes, and maybe not y'all's parents, right? Because your parents have you here with us on Sunday. Every Sunday, you guys are on time. You're participating in the chat. You're showing us that you're using the information. But what about your friends? What about your cousins? They don't have the same parents as much as you guys have the same family. And inside of these familial relationships, you're going to find that there's a bunch of questions that people don't have the answer for, that they don't want to look up the answer for, or they're just going to say, look, dare to be real, you're doing too much. Go outside and play. And who doesn't want to go outside and play, right? So it's kind of easy to trick you guys off of the information that you're seeking just because you're children. So again, we try to prepare you, get you ready for what happens when you're out here in the world and able to have these conversations on your own. As far as Maryland, since we did kind of talk about it last week, I don't want to stew too much here, just to give you another example of how you can present the information about your state, when it was established for this country. Remember, America being established in 1776, according to them, even though we know that our story is a lot older than that. And then the native peoples being people who have Algonquian and Iroquoian language speaking people. And then from there, they have different tribes: Piscataway, Nanticoke, Susquehannock, and I can't say the last one, but just different.
Choptanki.
There we go. Another reason why I wanted to invite Dr. Winters to this part of class is because he's done a lot of research. Remember, I told you he's done a lot of work to bring us information that's currently not widespread. We want you guys to have accurate information so that you can get to the next step quickly. So I know that I'm kind of moving right into math, but it's all part of the conversation. So today, our story, math, it's all related. And our specific story as Black Americans, what I learned is that, we all kind of came over here on a boat, and then we weren't told and we weren't allowed to speak the languages that we knew, and we were forcibly removed from our families, and just a lot of that. And a more accurate story is that we were already here, and they were able to change the borders and move some things around and remove us from our property. So the video that I had for you to watch this week, it asked the question about what if Black people were paid reparations? So we're going to watch that really quick. It is going to take us right to the end of class. And since we kind of started a little bit late, we are just moving a little slow today, but it's all very important that you get this information, because when we repeat it and then we repeat it again, you guys will know the information like the back of your hand. So without further ado, here we go.
I don't think reparations are a good idea.
It will close the racial wealth gap.
To end the long night of their captivity. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. The rock was landed on us.
Slavery, America's original sin, was outlawed by President Lincoln on New Year's Day in 1863. But the repercussions of this brutality and dehumanization linger within the institutions we entrust with our safety today. Whether you're discussing segregation through the Jim Crow laws or the redlining that denied services to people based on their ethnicity, it's true that racist policies meant to hold down an entire group of people were created by America's forefathers. So what if America paid reparations to Black people for slavery?
So before it gets too far along, and since I hope that you guys kind of watched it already, we won't have to watch the whole thing, but some key points. Remember, when we're getting information from mainstream media, this is a video I found on MSN, we have to pay attention to the words, because in the intro, it seemed like it was going to be an inclusive situation. They're talking about redlining. They're talking about segregation. These are things that's happened after chattel slavery. So while it is bad stuff, it's going to be very important that we pay attention to the who, the what, the where, the when, the why. And I want you guys to pay attention to the things that seem like they're not adding up. And when the math ain't mathin', that's when it's time for us to speak up. Dr. Winters, if you want me to pause on anything you hear that you want to comment on, just shoot me a message or just unmute and just start talking, and I'll mute the video.
Oh, no, you're fine. You're fine. The point that's very important to understand is that reparations is something that we are demanding, because the fact is that we've been done a wrong, and when you've been done a wrong, you should have some sort of satisfaction. And one of the ways to get satisfaction is to get reparations. And this is very important, because one of the things that hold many of us back is money. I know you guys, in a sense, you say, hey, I want some candy money, Mom. I want some lunch money. I don't know if you go to public school, sometimes you have to have extra money to pay for milk and things like that, or they may have a school store. So even that money is important. And that's one of the reasons why today, as foundational Black Americans, we're asking for reparations, because we feel that we've been done wrong and that we should be given compensation for what's happened to us. And this is one of the reasons that we're seeking reparations today, kids.
Absolutely. And in the chat, if you are unfamiliar with what we're talking about, that's why it's always best to listen before speaking, because we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, right? And for what it's worth, the person who's speaking so much in the chat is a whole adult. So you guys, sometimes y'all are going to be confused, and then there's going to be adults in the room who are also confused. So I'm glad you're here with us to learn, and I think your questions are going to get answered today.
Who would receive the payments? How much would reparations cost? And could this help heal America? This is What If, and here's what would happen if America paid reparations to Black people for slavery. All proceeds of this video will go to the Black Solidarity Fund, standing up against intolerance, prejudice, and injustice. Home to the first British colony in America, the coastal port of Jamestown became the model for English citizens seeking a new life overseas. And in 1619, it was this community where privateers paid by the British government brought the first 20 Black people to be auctioned and sold. Decades later, slavery was so ingrained in everyday life that few major businesses didn't profit from the racist laws and human suffering. So, if America were to pay reparations today, how would it improve our society? So, how does America begin to repay a debt rooted in the sale of human beings? Well, first, you would have to look at all the economic growth created by the free labor for a new era in agriculture. Upon their arrival, Black people in America were made to harvest crops like cotton, tobacco, and sugar.
Now, if you thought I was going to pause it here, you were so right, because why did I pause it here? Maybe you remember from last year when we had our different cahoots and we had our games and you guys showed us that you were so aware and keen on the subtleties. That means the things that aren't being spoken so loud, right? But right now, it's going to be very important that we make a distinction. Did Black people who were enslaved only do agriculture, or is it something else? And I understand that the video said that we're going to start here, but don't dismiss the fact that we've already talked about what was done, how much of what was done, roads, infrastructure, railroads, buildings, being inside of the house and outside of the house. It was seeming like if you could afford it, you had the help. And it's not afforded because we were getting paid for the work, right? No, that's not what happened. So we were not only cotton pickers. And that's going to be an important thing that you guys have ingrained in your brain, because they tried to teach me and Isla, and I don't know if it was taught to you like this, Dr. Winters, but they taught us that we were cotton pickers off of a boat. And then I had to unlearn that, because my family story goes hundreds of years here in Virginia. And
but it's very important that the kids do understand that. What you need to understand, young people, is that there were Black people already here when Europeans came, and because we were already here, it's not like we were new people, and everybody did not come over in a boat. Many of us were already here. Many of us had our families, and you find in a sense is that before Europeans and even Africans came here, you find in a sense that we had a very unique and a very distinctive culture. And because we had this unique and distinctive culture, it's important in a sense that we look at this, because we need to know in a sense our beginnings and see everything sometimes is more to life than what people show you. You see. And this is very important. For example, if you could share the screen for a minute, please.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah. And see, young people, these are just some of the, I know that many of you are saying, what is this? What is Dr. Winters talking about? Well, one of the things is that when we study history, we talk about two groups. We talk about Native Americans and we talk about Aboriginal Americans. Native Americans are the red man, the red Indians. But what you and many other people may not know, but there was also an Aboriginal group of Black people that were here. And these pictures you can kind of see some of the various Black Indians. Yes. Many of us have an Aboriginal origin. I didn't know I had an Aboriginal origin until I got in high school. And when I got in high school, my mom one day said, hey, Clyde, we're Choctaw. I said, Choctaw? What are you talking about? I've always heard that we came from Africa and that we came from Africa on a boat, Mom. What are you talking about? She said, well, here. And in fact, all of us didn't come over on a boat. And this is very important. I know it's hard for you to really take this into account, but there's more to our story than just coming here in 1619, because by 1619, many of us were already here.
Exactly. And, starting with Virginia, even though it is the state that I live in and my family comes from, it is their origin start too. Because remember, we talked about the Spanish in 1526, but America doesn't necessarily want to give you other people's start as much as they just want to make sure that when they got here and that they've made their claim. Kind of like when you see the the people on the moon, and they put their flag in the moon and they say, I've made it. This is my people. I've arrived. We're staking our claim. I guess it's similar there. Back to our video. So I lost it. There it is.
Their free labor was in high demand to jumpstart these new industries, and their enslavement became the biggest source of growth for the American economy. Under this,
You see how they do us? Stupid commercial. What? Why do we want to see this man on the screen? We don't.
legal and economic system, almost 12.5 million people of African descent were kidnapped through the transatlantic slave trade. And 15% of those abducted died on the ships. From kidnapping to their imprisonment, Black people put their bodies on the line just for the right to exist. If they weren't forced to labor in the fields, they cleaned the houses, cooked the meals, and raised the children of the same people who shackled them. Although the Emancipation Proclamation was enacted in 1863, it wasn't until 2 years later, on June 19, 1865, that Black people were set free from human bondage. Now celebrated as Juneteenth, it memorializes the day troops came to Galveston, Texas, and informed the enslaved Black population that they were free.
Now, you guys will have to remember, and I'm taking it kind of slow because I hope you've watched this already, but when Abraham Lincoln emancipated people, he wasn't in charge of the areas that he was talking about. So it's kind of like me telling you, all right, let's see, in the chat, Crates of Junior, I know you're not a mini, but let's just use you. If you were a mini at your house, living with your parents, and I'm my age, I'm still an adult, and I say, Crates of Junior, you can eat ice cream for breakfast. And you're like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, because I said so, it's cool. And then your parents are like, no, you can't eat ice cream for breakfast. You know better. You know that that's not what we do over here. And then you follow what I say, even though I don't have any power over that household. It's going to be important that we take the time to put things in appropriate context, because they say Abe Lincoln freed the slaves, and he did not. He had some words to say. That's true. He made some people angry with how he felt about things. That's true. And he was assassinated. That's also true. But inside of the truth, do they give it to us in the way that they've been giving it to us because they want us to feel something? And if people are doing things for us to feel some kind of way, then that's a good chance that they're not really being honest about things. When I want you to feel something, I'm going to tell you with feeling words. I'm going to tell you how I feel. When people don't share their intent, the reasons why they're doing certain things, especially when it's lying on history, not telling you the truth about things, especially when they have access to the truth. You can't just give them a pass, because it's dangerous to do that. There's a whole generation of Black American adults who don't know who they are because they bought into the lies, and then let me or Dr. Winters try to wake them up out of the spell, let Isla talk to them about Mr. Fuller's code book, and they glitch. It's like they don't want to accept it. Dr. Winters has an acronym called CADES. Will you tell the minis what CADES is, Dr. Winters?
Yes. CADES is what CADES is. It's called Culturally Acquired Immune Identity Deficiency Syndrome. And when you catch CADES, what happens is that, I know you guys, we went through that pandemic a couple of years ago. You couldn't go to school, you had to stay home. But but what happened in a sense is that just as people was trying to avoid the pandemic, we also have another pandemic, and this pandemic is CAIDS, culturally acquired immune identity deficiency syndrome. And this is a very virulent disease. And what it does is that it makes some people lose the ability to understand that they are, I'm sad to say, Black, or that they're foundational Black Americans. People who suffer from CAIDS, they want to be white. They want to be of the white nationality, and they are ashamed of themselves. They lack confidence, and they lack the knowledge that as a Black person, you can be successful too. As a Black person, you have some opportunities. Yes, it's a little bit difficult, but at the same time, if you work hard, you pray, then there is a path to success. Look at your parents. But the point is this, is that we have to fight CAIDS, and the way you fight CAIDS is you come to school, like here today, when you've got Miss Eve to teach you what she's trying to teach you about your own self, your own identity. But it's very important that you learn that the most important person in the world, you may not know this, but the most important person in the world is you. And that's why every day you should look in the mirror and you should say to yourself, first, say your name. Second, you say, I am a girl, I am a boy. And then third, say, I am successful and I will be a success. And I guarantee you that if you look in the mirror every day and you talk to yourself, you're going to find that you will be that success, because success comes from believing in yourself and loving yourself, because you, yes, you are the most important person on the planet Earth.
That was beautiful. And I'm going to remind you guys of that. I'm going to make a little graphic because as you are supposed to be starting your day with your stretches and getting your mind right to be a fit component in Black America, even at your respective ages, you can use these affirmations and watch how things change. Maybe you weren't having a good day. You didn't want to wake up today because you didn't get a lot of sleep last night. But you start with what Dr. Winters just gave you, and that might change how you feel about the day. So like I said, I don't want to go too far off of Sunday school ending, because I know that we kind of ran a little long today, but very important that you guys get today's message, because next month for August, the month of Ogun, we will have more work to do. And it's important that you're prepared with this information. So at first, if you're still in chat, you wanted to know about the figures, and it's going to be explained. At least this math will be explained from this video.
The author Jason Hick estimated that in the United States alone, over 220 million hours of forced labor occurred between 1619 and 1865. That's over 25,000 years of forced labor. If you were to pay out that labor today at minimum wage, the cost would add up to $97 trillion. And this doesn't take into account that a working day wasn't an 8-hour shift. So where would the reparations money come from? Well, the money could come from three main groups. The first being the state and federal government, who supported slavery at the highest levels. Before Abraham Lincoln, 12 of the U.S. presidents owned Black people. The U.S. Treasury Department collected 2% of the value assigned to enslaved people, its chief source of revenue. And to further strip away their dignity, the Constitution declared that every enslaved Black person only counted as 3/5 of a human. Another source of income? The private businesses that profited from the sale of humans. Some organizations are already trying to repay this debt. In 2019, Georgetown University announced plans to raise $400,000 a year for reparations. The money will be paid to the descendants of enslaved people whom the university sold. Of course, this money comes from fundraising, not the university. And some of the same wealthy clientele that will donate to Georgetown may or may not be a family that directly benefited from slavery. This second source of income could be taxes to pay off that almost $100 trillion price tag. Lastly, the private businesses who benefited from slave labor and still exist today could pay their fair share in taxes to help fund reparations. While when we think of slavery, we picture a Gothic southern farm collecting the spoils from all the forced labor. But up north on Wall Street, slavery kept the market running. Giant insurance companies offered policies on enslaved people and offered securities to plantation owners to expand. Businesses grew fast on the backs of the enslaved and exploited. Banks even accepted enslaved workers as collateral. Taxing these businesses to repay the money they made from exploiting humans could go a long way to healing America's wounds. But who will be eligible for this payment? The U.S. Census estimates the African American population in the United States to be almost 42 million people. That's about 12% of the total U.S. population.
Now that's where I'm going to stop the video, because in real time, every 10 years, the country takes a census. It's like a record of who's here. And in real time, Black America is not so trusting, even though we tell you that Black America is too trusting. It's so funny, you guys. It's ironic. So it's not ha-ha funny. It's just, that's interesting. But we're trusting of things that we probably should be more careful with, and careless with things that we should be more trusting. Inside of that, I've learned from Dr. Winters that in 1870, 1880, 1890, 1900, 1910, 1920, the members of the racist white supremacist class, people who are making the power moves, people who are telling everybody where the resources are going to go, they were fudging the numbers. Can you give them a little bit about what I mean by fudging the numbers, Dr. Winters?
Okay, as you saw in the video, they mentioned the fact that pursuant to the federal government, that African people or Black people in America were counted as 3/5 of a person. And this is for tax purposes. They also did this in terms of undercounting people. So as you might imagine, during slavery, people had to pay taxes on their slaves. So most of the time, people lied about how many slaves they had, so they wouldn't have to pay taxes. Just like maybe some parents nowadays lie on their taxes. So what we find is that there's always been an undercount. It's always been an undercount of the population of foundational Black Americans. Okay, the reason in the sense that we call ourselves foundational Black Americans is because the fact in a sense is that we were here even before there was a United States, because we were here originally as the Aboriginals, but we were also here in a sense as independent people. And so what happens is that slavery wasn't our own, our only existence. But it's very important to understand in a sense that they've always undercounted us. And so there's millions of more Black people in this country than is recognized by the census. And I wouldn't really take that count of only 12% of the people being Black. The most evident, example of this is when you go down south to states like Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama, and even up here in the north. Many of us refuse to really tell people how many people live in our homes and things like that. So it's complicated in trying to determine the actual population of foundational Black Americans, but it's millions and millions and millions and millions of us,
That's right. You guys, y'all can look in your own communities and see more of us than you see of anybody else. And then the question comes down to, how do people identify? In the video you watched, I don't know if we got to that section yet, but I did post the link in Patreon, so you can go check it out on your own. But they were very specific about who's owed. But that's why I told you have to be careful with how they're defining things, because all through the video it's Black or African American, then it's Black again, then it's African American, then they talk about redlining, then they talk about slavery, they talk about Jim Crow, then they talk about segregation. You know, it's a lot of hopping around the story, hopping around the timeline. So like I said, today we did go a little over, but it was important that we got all of this information to you today. And don't worry, we will go through it again. If you got the link, you will have access to it after class. And I think Dr. Winters is streaming on his channel, so you can definitely check it out over there. As always, I'm Eve, and Isla was here earlier, but then she glitched out. We've been doing this for a little while, and at least online for a year. This is our second year, and we're very happy to be on this journey with you. And today we did have a guest. Dr. Winters is an African-American educator, anthropologist, and linguist. He's actually more than that. He's taught education and languages and he's written a lot of stuff. And people like Dr. Winters, they don't like him because he doesn't care about how they feel about the truth as much as his purpose, as defined by his wife, is to make sure that we have the truth by any means necessary. So we support him, we salute him, we are appreciative of him, and I'll post a way for you to show your support financially if you wanted to do that. And today we did have many educators, Daria and not Samaya, but our student teacher, our girl twin, and they led you through your wellness today. As always, Sunday school is not church, but it can be like church. We never want you to be anywhere where you feel unsafe and you are unprepared. So every Sunday we try to give you the right armor so that you are ready to go. Until next time, you guys have a beautiful week. You stay blessed, and we'll see you next Sunday.